Hi, my name's Kat, and today Reddit has been asked, serious, have you ever broken off a relationship with someone you really loved because their family was absolutely nuts? What was their family like? We were together 10 years. His mum cried all the time and made everything about her. Her children pooled their money to buy her an expensive TV for Christmas. When she opened it, she burst into miserable tears, saying it wouldn't fit her favourite TV cabinet, then repeated how disappointed she was to family all Christmas. She also referred to her daughter-in-law as the vessel that provided her grandchildren. Yes, my first wife. Her parents had no concept of boundaries. Her older brother was in and out of rehab all the time. Her sister turned tricks to pay for drugs. We foolishly thought that we'd be able to keep them at arm's length, but she felt guilty and let them pull her back into their dysfunctional, ducked-up lives. After a while, I couldn't take it anymore and we split. Fortunately, we had no children. I wouldn't call it a relationship, but a girl I had been on a few dates with had invited me back to her place. School, right? Except when we got there, she had failed to mention that her entire family lived there. So I was introduced to her mother and father and siblings at like midnight when we got back to her place, and she told them, "We're going to my room to have sex." And her dad said, "You brought protection, right, man?" And I kind of nodded in a daze. So we went back there and did the deed, and she was actually amazing in bed. After I wondered how I do the walk of shame as I passed her family on the way out, so I tried to duck out at like 3 a.m, her dad was still in the kitchen eating tamales. He asked me to sit down and I was like, oh, duck. But then he served me up a delicious tamale and told me frankly that his daughter liked to hurt men like me, and if I had any sense, I would keep the memory of the night close and never speak to her again. I thought it was just a dad who didn't approve at first. But then her brother came in and said, "You need to run, white boy. My sister is crazy." So I nodded sagely and then didn't take their advice. I really should have. The relationship lasted about a month and we ended up with my car windows being broken. "You can suck my left nut," replied with, "I'm sorry, but I laughed at this. This literally sounds like a scene from a movie." I'm on the other side of this question. My family are worthless piles of crap who would diss the Pope for attention. I mean, there is something seriously wrong with them, and I have no idea why I wasn't infected. Long story short, brought a girl home I was dating, and it went exactly how I thought it would. First thing out of my stepdad's mouth, "Doesn't he," pointing at me, "have a tiny bick? You should come over here and sit with me." It was like an old school cartoon. Could have sworn I saw dust kick up with how fast she took it off out of there. We weren't dating, but we had a mutual liking for each other. Her parents were just toxic and parasitic. They expected her to marry a rich man and they lived in luxury. She was working a good job already, but her parents and other family members were pressuring her to get rich so they'd be rich too. When they found out about me, they sent me messages through Facebook and asked me how much I make, and that as the wedding gift, I should build them a large mansion that they could all live in together. I haven't seen her for about 4 years, and it seems like neither have her family. She got a job abroad and cut all ties with them. She was the youngest child at the time, and I'd also taught her English. My husband and I almost broke up before the wedding. He's a different race than myself, and his family really don't like me because of it. About a month before the wedding, it came to heads with me calling his mother, aunts, and grandma idiots because they said that it was a good thing that my grandmothers were both dead because it was 2 less women of my race in the world. This was said in response to his father making the comment that he was sad that his own parents were passed away and couldn't be at the wedding. I, trying to emphasise, said that I was sad my grandmas were passed away and couldn't be there. He cut them all off for a long time. Didn't invite them to our hurricane party/wedding. He started talking to them again after my sister-in-law committed suicide. Sister-in-law was not their daughter, but rather my brother's wife's husband, and she were close. Last year, because he thinks life is too short to be angry at people you love, they have rules though. No one talks about me, about our marriage, and I don't have to have anything to do with them if I don't want. It works for us. He wishes we were closer, but his family spent the better part of our relationship harassing me and bullying me whilst I kept my mouth shut. I don't like blowing up at people. It only makes the person who blew up look bad, and having lost my temper with his family embarrassed me. Fortunately, he's been very supportive of me. If he hadn't been so great, we'd not be together now. His mother sent me a letter recently, apologising for their behaviour, but I think my pride is too great to accept. Yes, my ex-husband. I wouldn't say nuts, but his whole family had such a different concept of money/work from me and how I was raised. They were constantly living above their means and buying ridiculous things. Then when something important came along, they had to scramble and borrow. For example, one time his mother borrowed cash from me. A new teacher, even though she lived abroad in a fancy penthouse with a pool, she told me she deposits it in her father's account and I could get it from him. When asked though, he said that she had deposited it, but then had to take it back. We're talking like $100 here. I was just baffled. I thought my ex was different until he blew $3,000 of our wedding gift money. We asked for honeymoon funds in lieu of gifts on a trip he took without me and didn't think to tell me about the missing money. Just that it was no big deal and he put it back someday. La la la. That was the last straw. I dated a guy for just shy of 4 years, but ended up ending it because his mother refused to let us have a future together. His mother was basically his owner. She told him where he was allowed to go, what he could spend his own money on, who he was allowed to see. The dude was 32 when we started dating, by the way. I was his rebel phase. He managed to carve out 4 hours a day, once a week, to see me, and always at my house. He insisted every week for almost 4 years to get pizza delivered, and always got a separate pizza to take home for his mum. The guy despised pizza, and would force down half a slice, but his mum wanted it, so that's what we had. I met his mother once, about a year in. He invited maybe 8 people round for a D&D night, and he tried to sneak me past her. I ended up bumping into her later in the night and introduced myself. I went to shake her hand and she just stared at it, grunted in disgust and left the room. Cliché as it sounds, I really did think he was my soulmate, so I put up with it. We talk on the phone and Skype every day, text constantly, and I guess I'd convinced myself that things would get better. The final straw was when I ended up in hospital. I called him in pain and asked him to come down as I was really scared. And he said he couldn't. He needed to take his mum to her bridge club. Less of a crazy story, more of a sad one, I guess. Lol. My first girlfriend was a nice Italian girl, whose family drove me crazy. I'm a white bread Canadian, what would be called a mangia cake. So that was the first strike against me in their eyes. Her mother treated me well, but the dad always looked at me as if I wore my shoes in the house or something. The first time I had dinner at their house, he went into a whole speech about the immorality of the word wop, unbidden by anything I had said or done. We had to take our younger brother on dates with us, and the one time he made plans with some friends so we could drop him off and get some time alone. He immediately ratted her out when he got home. One time, we were out on the porch, my arm is around her shoulders, and we're watching the sunset. Her father comes out on the porch and makes some meaningless small talk about how the weather is so nice, and it's so nice to have such a warm evening. Found out the next day that he beat the crap out of her for being a whore in public. We talked about getting her out of that house, but at the end of the day, she couldn't leave her family behind. We were only together for a few months, but the whole family situation was just something I couldn't deal with. The icing on the cake was when it was my birthday. She went and gave me a Rolex. Again, we had only been dating for a few months, and I'd been to her house, so I knew she wasn't from some wealthy family where money was meaningless. She assured me that it was a genuine Rolex that her father had acquired. That was when I learned that he was a local mafia boss, and more than a few pieces fell into place. I thanked her for the gift, but gave it back, as I didn't want to feel like I owed any favours to anyone. We broke up soon afterward, and the next time I saw her was at a friend's wedding, where she was there with her very Italian fiancé. Family wasn't nuts, but their actions were 90% of the reason for the breakup. I was a high achiever in high school/college. I was at top 20 university, majoring in STEM, and was one of the best in my class. Everyone, including my girlfriend and her parents, thought I was going to get some super high-paying job because of my major. I really wanted to be a public school teacher though. My dream was always to run a school one day. When I told my girlfriend, there were a lot of tears. Her parents fully expected her to become a stay-at-home mum. They acted like I was throwing my life away. Her dad got me 1-on-1 and told me I could never propose until I was financially stable, even though I'd been working for 2 years, paying for everything for both me and my girlfriend, no debt and still saving $1,000 a month. When my girlfriend talked about spending an extra semester in grad school, her mum said openly, "We're not a bank, we can't always support you, and Bagel Fish 2 obviously can't either." There were a lot of texts from mum to girlfriend about rose-coloured glasses, he makes you happy now, but when push comes to shove, he won't be able to be there for you. For years after making the decision, her parents would ask me, oh, so when are you going to get a real job? Or when are you heading back to grad school? That was especially silly. I already had a master's degree. It got to the point that I started applying for jobs in the STEM field. I actually had 2 offers that were over double my salary. Ultimately, I decided I'd rather keep doing what I loved than be with someone I loved. Recently, I was told by a mutual friend that Mum said, thank God X and Bagelfish 2 broke up. He had such potential, but just no work ethic. Wow, and reading them makes me so grateful for having such a loving in-law family. Well, they're not my in-laws yet, as I'm not married, but my boyfriend's family couldn't be the nicest of people, so I'm so glad that I don't have to go through some of the stuff these people do. Anyway, it was quite funny reading through them though. Comment down below if you've ever been with someone whose family is absolutely crazy or just weird or, I don't know, rude or whatever. It'll be really interesting to know. Thanks for listening, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. This video is sponsored by me. Sweet Mouthful Mixes brings pick and mix sweets straight to your door. Choose up to 10 scoops of your favourite sweets or pick a pre-packed bag. Sweet Mouthful Mixes has a 5-star hygiene rating and full PPE is worn whilst making the bags. With over 50 sweets to choose from, you're guaranteed to find something you like. Treat yourself. You've earned it. Get 20% off with code REDDIT.